Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Taves, Ryan Miller, those are just some of the NHL players who've suffered concussions in this past season. And the rash of concussions is also increasing among youth hockey players. According to Dr. Jeffrey Mianis at Midwest Orthopaedics at Rush, Chicago area youth hockey leagues have seen the highest number of concussions this year than ever before, including some players as young as 6 years old.
We probably have more kids playing these more aggressive sports at younger ages, but also there's a general awareness now about what concussions are.
Researchers have found that adolescent hockey players are more susceptible to concussions because of a larger head size to body size ratio and weaker neck muscles, which leads to less stability on skates when checked or pushed.
If we can strengthen the neck muscles, then you avoid that floppiness of the head and you can become more rigid. That might dissipate some of the force and take it away from the brain.
It's also a common misconception that when a young person suffers a concussion, they heal faster. But Dr. Mianis says that isn't the case.
Kids take longer to clear concussion symptoms. They are actually at higher risk for complications from concussions, like something called second impact syndrome or post-concussive syndrome. And even just clearing their symptoms and becoming asymptomatic or ready to go back to sport, they can easily take twice as long as adults for a simple, normal, regular, run-of-the-mill concussion.
With the increasing numbers of concussions, educating players, coaches, and parents about the signs and protocols that need to be followed becomes imperative.
There's actually a good study out there that actually looked at asking kids why they weren't being honest about their concussion symptoms, why they weren't telling a doctor or their parent about their concussion symptoms. It wasn't the number one reason most people think is because they didn't want to be held out of the game. The number one reason actually was because they didn't know it was a concussion, number one, and they didn't know that a concussion was that potentially serious.
Now, you know, when a player gets hit in the head, it's something that we have to pay more attention to. You know, I think the coaches are held a little more accountable if he recognizes a player has a concussion to get him, you know, medical treatment.
Youth hockey leagues are taking a number of steps to lower the number of concussions among younger players. Besides more testing, they're now concentrating more on developing skill sets and less on contact.
We still really depend on the athlete to be honest about their symptoms, because the only one that truly knows if they're having a headache or how they're feeling is the athlete. And so that's why it's so important to bring up to these young athletes, you know, what a concussion is, what the symptoms are like, because only they can tell us if they're having the symptoms.
Sarah Kustak, Comcast Sportsnet.